Let me just make
Can you
sure
hear me
this
okay?
is. Yes, I can hear you, and we're here today because of your initiative at the UN for intervention in what's happening with the January 6th prisoners.
Yes, today we made a formal complaint to the United Nations Human Rights Committee. We were fortunate enough to meet with Malika Bede, who's the Secretary General for Human Rights at the United Nations, and bring our case directly to him. He was very kind and sympathetic to hearing us out, at least, and that's all we can expect at this point. Our cause is probably one of the greatest human rights cases, at least in the United States right now. There are many political prisoners who are being held for nothing other than their beliefs, not because of anything they did. And we're fighting for justice at the state level, at the federal level, and now at the international level on their behalf. So we've asked the UN to review our complaint, which was, I think, very complete and in line with what their expectations were for a formal complaint. We're also asking foreign governments to consider imposing travel and financial sanctions on the U.S. leadership who has perpetuated these human rights abuses. Much in the same way the U.S. government has often sanctioned foreign leaders for falling short of international norms on human rights, we're asking other nations to do the same to President Biden, to Attorney General Merrick Garland, and to FBI Director Christopher Wray.
Can you, how many people are in prison right now?
Our estimate is approximately 80 to 100, but then there are many hundreds more who have been targeted for their political beliefs and given disparate treatment, had their lives turned upside down, gone bankrupt, lost their jobs, lost their homes, had the FBI come into their house and point guns at their children. This has gone way too far, and we've been fighting this since January, and we're going to keep on going. September 18th, we have a rally at the U.S. Capitol, back where it all started, where we will make the case for justice for the January 6th political prisoners.
Is there any implication of I'm not quite sure what the legal decision was, but the statement that there was no conspiracy?
The FBI has found that they are not going to be able to make the case that there was any widespread conspiracy. So no one's going to be charged with conspiracy. No one's going to be charged with insurrection or sedition. They're charging people and destroying their lives over charges like parading, which historically, as recently as the last year, have resulted in nothing more than a slap on the wrist. But when you have the wrong political beliefs, they come to your house with guns drawn and put your faces on billboards and cause you to lose your job and go bankrupt.
Right, and they don't charge that they were involved in any conspiracy for insurrection. It's just that they were in the wrong place at the wrong time.
They walked into a public building, took a few pictures, and walked out.
Can you?
And it's also, arguably, it's not even a crime because all of those alleged crimes require knowledge that what you were doing was wrong, something called mens rea. And no, I don't believe any of these people really knew what they were doing was wrong. I think they were just naive and just trying to exercise the First Amendment rights about something they were very passionate about.
Can you talk about the question of provocateurs and the question of FBI involvement on January 6th?
That's something that we need to investigation to get to the bottom of. We need a real investigation of the January 6th incidents and asking what involvement the federal government had in planning and participating in this. We know for pretty good reason the FBI definitely had people embedded within that crowd. We want to know how many, who they're reporting to, what their objective was, what they knew before the event, and what they did in the aftermath.
Mm-hmm. And can you also talk about the surveillance? You see regularly pictures and then asking people to turn people in, and obviously everything was monitored.
The U.S. government is sitting on 14,000 hours of evidence that would, we believe, clear many of the people they're accusing of charges, but they're refusing to release it. Why? Because we think it would reveal Capitol Police's complicity in attacking the crowd, in committing what I would consider war crimes by throwing flashbang grenades into a peaceful crowd, which we have footage of because it was taken by people who are participating. We believe there's far more video of this being held by the federal government. But they have been sitting on that and refusing not only to give it to the public, but refusing to give it to defense attorneys who need it to defend their clients. Clients are being denied bail and sitting in solitary confinement right now.
I see. What about the recent...
So I got to wrap it up. Last question.
Okay, the statement, I want to ask about the officer who was killed, and there was a tremendous amount of media coverage saying he was killed by people, and then later it turns out that wasn't the case.
The people who are perpetuating this great narrative that being an insurrection have peddled a lot of lies. Probably the biggest one is that any police officer was killed in this incident. None were killed. The only police officer on the Capitol who's been killed recently was by a Nation of Islam guy several months after January 6th. So there were no police officers who were killed in this incident, yet they continue to lie about it. and repeat the lie over and over again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.